Hello, everyone. Welcome to the FFTB show. I'm your host, Raul Handa, and today we have with us Dr. Kaiser Raja, who is a liver and gastrointestinal disease specialist with over 20 years of experience. Dr. Raja has studied in some of the most prestigious colleges in the world, including PGI, Chandigarh, and Mount Sinai Medical Center in New York. Thank you so much for joining our show today, Dr. Raja. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Raul, for inviting me on your show. It's really a great pleasure to be here.
So I have tons of questions, especially around, liver disease. You've done some amazing work. But before we delve into that, let's talk about how did it all start? How did Dr. Raja become Dr. Raja?
Well, I would say it's in the family. So my father was a doctor. He's an internal medicine doctor. He was in the Indian Army. Actually, he never wanted me to become a doctor. He wanted me to become actually a civil servant, But then I used to hear stories of civil servants not doing so well because of the, the bureaucracy and the politics around them. So I was never interested in that sort of field. So then obviously, in our days, we were from the late 80s and 90s. There were very few choices for people, either take engineering stream or the medical stream. IT and software was really picking up at that time, but not very mainstream.
Right.
So naturally, I then went into the medical profession. Yeah.
Interesting. Gastrointestinal and liver diseases. You deal with some very life-threatening complications like liver cancer. Was this always your choice of specialty?
Yeah, so I would say that, I did my medical school from a place called Bhopal in Madhya Pradesh, India. And then I did my post-graduation in medicine and then gastroenterology from Chandigarh, postgraduate institute, a very premier institution in the north of India. So there we were doing medicine. After medicine, you can choose a specialty, right? Like cardiology, gastroenterology, neurology. Right. So I would say our initial, rotations in medicine subspecialties was in gastroenterology. And I would say there were some very bright, young doctors whom we call senior residents, who used to teach us. And these teaching sessions actually used to start after dinner. So they used to call us back at 9:30, 10, have your dinner, come back, guys. And then the teaching would go on and on. And this, especially in PGI Chandigarh, the gastro department was quite famous for these late night teaching. We used to go all till like 2 a.m. in the morning. So these are our first postings, after medical school. You really get interested, enthralled.
Right.
I know cardiology is a natural choice during those days, for most medicine students. But for us, gastroenterology was really charming, yeah.
Interesting the way you say that, cardiology was most interesting. Your passion and the organ that you're most passionate about, the liver, we'll talk a little bit about that. But I want to understand that, there's a lot of importance, even us, right? Like I know somebody who's just been diagnosed with a fatty liver and he took it very casually. He said, it's like, heart attack thodi na aa raha hai. It's not a heart problem. It's not like I have a tumor in the brain, right? So people take the liver very lightly. What is the role of the liver in our body? How important is liver as an organ, Dr. Raja?
So liver is obviously it's a very, very important organ. If you look at other organs, most of the functions of other organs, you can say, with just as a layman, you would know what's a heart. It's a pump.
Correct.
What's the lungs? Well, it's a kind of an exchange organ where gas exchange takes place. The kidneys are a filter. The pancreas is an organ which produces insulin. Of course, brain is very complex. So liver is actually a very complex organ. Most people, if you ask them liver, what does it do? So people would struggle. I mean, liver has got over like 1,000 functions.
Wow.
So it's a storage organ. It stores so many things: fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals. It's actually a synthetic organ. It makes a lot of things. So a lot of hormones in your bodies, lots of antibodies, immunoglobulins. These are made by the liver. A lot of transport chemicals, So you have lots of chemicals in your body, but they need to be transported from one organ to the other organ.
Right.
So these transported chemicals are made by the liver.
Right.
So, and then liver is also a filter actually. It filters a lot of waste which comes from the gut.
Oh.
So liver is between the gut and the heart. So whatever gets absorbed from the gut when we eat food, all the nutrients, various other, even toxins which get absorbed from the gut, actually get filtered through the liver. So liver actually prevents our rest of the body from receiving all these toxic substances. So it acts as like a first barrier of defense in our response to infections and toxins from the gut. So it's a very complex organ. The good thing about the liver is that because it is so critically placed, And probably nature has made it in such a manner that it is exposed to a lot of insults, on a day-to-day basis,
Insults, huh?
And the liver has to tolerate these insults. So the
Right.
regenerative potential of the liver is huge.
Okay.
So that's why you would have patients who've been drinking alcohol and insulting their livers, with the alcohol acting as a toxin. But still, a lot of them can recover, and the liver, because of its liver, its inherent regenerative potential. So that is the reason that you keep on, traumatizing your liver with whatever sort of insults you call it, but your poor liver keeps on suffering without actually, making a noise. So unlike the heart, where an artery gets blocked and you have a severe pain, and that's what we call a heart attack.
Correct.
So liver, because of its inherent nature of regeneration, doesn't produce symptoms till the liver disease is quite advanced.
Okay.
So earlier forms of liver disease, really go unnoticed. People are asymptomatic. So the liver has to get almost 80% damaged, what we say commonly, to really produce any symptom. So that's the reason why people don't have symptoms. That's why they're ignorant, and many people have liver disease, especially this fatty liver disease, which is found in a lot of our modern urban population, which are subjected to the modern lifestyle, food habits, lack of exercise, sedentary lifestyle, increasing prevalence of being overweight, obese, diabetic. All this is contributing to fatty liver disease.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's first talk about, you said alcohol, right? It's an insult. Let's talk about the insult. A lot of myths. Hard drinks or hard alcohol can only damage the liver versus wine and beer. Is that the case?
I think it's not true. It's the absolute quantity of alcohol. So, I have patients who drink like a bottle of wine every day, and even their livers can get damaged. So, you have to understand alcohol, in small quantities, moderate quantities, is not bad for the body. Okay, you could. We're not discussing the social implications of
that's
alcoholism.
secondary, yeah.
We are discussing the
health
customary
implications,
use
yeah.
of alcohol, the routine use of social alcohol. It's actually not bad. So let's not label it as a dogma, that you should, person drinking alcohol. It's that excessive amount of alcohol when it becomes an abuse, there when it starts getting affecting your body. And then it's not just the liver, it's the liver, pancreas. Alcohol can affect the heart, alcohol can affect the nerves, alcohol can affect your nervous system. It can produce psychological problems, neurological problems. So alcohol that way is when it becomes a drug of abuse. That's when it becomes a problem. The other thing is that people have different sensitivity to the amount of alcohol. So you will find people who don't drink that much alcohol. They might be just drinking 3 days a week or on the weekends, but they still have alcohol-induced liver disease. While there'll be others who drink a lot of alcohol every day, but their livers do well. So there are many other factors which affect development of liver disease in alcoholic. Genetics being an important factor.
I was just about to ask, is genetics
Yes, genetics is an absolutely important factor in the development of alcoholic liver disease. If someone's father had alcoholic liver disease, then his children or son or daughter, if he drinks alcohol, would have a higher predisposition to developing liver disease. The other thing is that, liver is affected by different factors. Alcohol is just one of them.
Right.
We just discussed obesity affects the liver by causing fatty liver. Diabetes affects the liver. So if you look at today's urban population, where there are a lot of people who are at least overweight, obese, some of them are diabetics, pre-diabetics, and they drink alcohol, and they're young and middle-aged, their even smaller amounts of alcohol might actually be affecting them.
Got it.
Not just the higher doses of alcohol.
So this is a myth that I'm just having one peg, or like you said, I'm just having alcohol on the weekend. There are so many other factors that can actually, add to how soon you get liver disease.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Dr. Raja, let's talk a little bit about liver cancer, right? How common is liver cancer in today's, because people are living sedentary lifestyles, etc. How many patients are you looking at with a life-threatening disease like liver cancer, and is it reversible even in the later stages? Like you said, a liver is an organ which takes a lot of insults, right? हम उसको punch कर रहे हैं, yet it's able to come back. Like you said, there's so many people who have advanced stage liver diseases, and yet if they control it, the liver repairs itself, it regenerates itself. How does it work with liver cancer?
So see, liver cancer is yet a very advanced stage of what happens in the liver when it gets damaged. But before that, you have a condition called cirrhosis.
Right.
So this fatty liver leads to fibrosis, which is scarring of the liver, which is also reversible. But then it leads to a stage called cirrhosis, where you can say it's advanced scarring of the liver, which is not really reversible. You can stabilize it, but a really scarred or advanced damaged liver cannot be really made normal, So once, so thing is that the group of people who are having fatty liver disease with alcohol or with obesity or diabetes is huge.
Right.
You can sit around in a shopping mall and see the people around you. You can pick up yourself at least 100 people around you who are at risk of liver disease.
Absolutely.
So we want to identify those people at risk of liver disease. Not everyone in that at risk of, see, a lot of people will have fatty liver, but not everybody will have fatty liver progressing to cirrhosis. So that's the catch. People are there, about 10% with fatty liver who will progress to cirrhosis. And this progression, people don't know because they don't have any symptom when they're progressing.
Absolutely.
Now, amongst those who will progress to cirrhosis, then they have cirrhosis, still they don't have symptoms. Then two things will happen when they have cirrhosis. I mean, this all process takes like 20 years, 30 years. So it's a slow process. But there's a catch here because people are getting obese earlier in life. I see patients, 18, 20-year-old boys just going to university who are 110, 120 kilos. And they are pre-diabetic. They're just 18. By the time they are 40, 40 is young age nowadays. By the time they are 40, they might have liver cirrhosis. Now comes liver cancer. When you are cirrhosis, two things will happen. Either your liver will fail, which is liver failure. We call cirrhosis with liver failure. Or you'll develop a cancer, or sometimes a combination. So liver cancer develops in a minority of patients with cirrhotics, but still among the whole of people who have not just liver disease, but cirrhosis, about 5 to 10% will develop liver cancer.
Okay.
Liver cancer overall is very common. If you say it's the 4th or 5th commonest cancer in the world.
Wow.
Early liver cancers can be cured very well. Person can be cured. But again, the problem comes. You don't know you've got advanced liver disease. You don't know you have cirrhosis. You don't know that your risk of liver cancer is there. So how would you screen yourself? And small liver cancers again don't cause any symptoms. So we again come back to your very first question that people are not aware that there is liver disease sitting in their body. Okay, not all of us are at risk, but we all have risk factors. And we don't know how to screen for that, and how periodically to look for that. You go for a health check. I mean, they are looking at diabetes, cholesterol, blood pressure, heart disease, osteoporosis, vitamin D deficiency. Great, it's good to look at that. They do a basic liver function also. Actually, something is good, something is better than nothing, So they look at your liver enzyme, something called SGOT, SGPT. Fair enough, Doing a liver enzyme does not really pick up everyone with liver disease. But then we get so many patients. Doctor, I went for a health check and my liver enzymes are a bit elevated. And then the doctor asked me to do an ultrasound scan and I've got fatty liver. So now there you are, you're a liver specialist. Tell me what's happening. I've got no symptoms. So this is how we are picking up many people. But we are still at the tip of the iceberg. Because there are many people who are at risk of liver disease. Let's say the alcoholics, the obese, the diabetic, the patients with a family history of liver disease, whose liver enzymes are normal. And they still have liver disease, or who would never do ultrasound scans. Also, how many people do health assessments? Actually, very few.
Yeah, and there's this fear, na? It's like opening a Pandora's box. What if something gets found?
Yeah, so many people live in that phenomena that I'm feeling healthy. I mean, these liver checks or these essential health checks are just being over promoted. Even we used to think years ago, like 2 decades ago, that these health checks, except for checking for cholesterol and sugar, really don't make any sense. But now it's getting mainstream. Now it's getting mainstream, at least above the age of 40 years. I would say even earlier because of our lifestyle. That we should have at least in a couple of years a general health check. Yeah.
Interesting. So, Dr. Raja, I want to talk about, and I want to tell our audience as well, that Dr. Raja conducted the first liver transplant in Dubai. That was an amazing feat, and we'll talk and delve a little bit into that. First, when you put the word first around it, it automatically adds pressure. Peer pressure, pressure from the hospital, media pressure. What if it goes wrong? All eyes on you. And if it goes wrong, God forbid, you're risking your career, right? What was going on in your mind when you were taking that decision? And tell us more about this entire experience of, getting the first liver transplant.
Yeah, first of all, Raul, it's a team effort. I'm just a very small part of that huge team, and I'm not a surgeon, So the transplantation was done by very capable surgeons in our hospital, King's College Hospital. King's College Hospital, we are connected to King's College in London, and King's College in London is a premier institute for liver transplantation in the world.
Right.
We borrow expertise from there. We borrow our protocols, our policies from there. But then this is Dubai, and you are doing something which is miles, hundreds, thousands of miles away from London. So you can't just bring everyone here. You have to train your local staff, and the training goes to nurses, operation theater technicians,
Right.
people in the intensive care,
Right.
special anesthetists, special intensive care doctors, us hepatologists, and the surgeons, and then to put the whole team together so that they have a all, meeting of minds. That's a very important thing. The bigger challenge is to convince the first patient that you
Absolutely.
are our first patient and you're going to have a liver transplant.
Right.
This is impossible, to do that, because such a complex surgery.
Absolutely.
And you're bound to have problems. So we have to select the correct patient. And then you don't always get the opportunity to get a correct patient. A correct patient would be kind of a patient who has got only advanced liver disease, not very complicated. The patient should not be complicated from other aspects, like he should not be having a cardiac problem. A patient should not be a smoker, so the lungs are not, bad. Patient should not have a kidney problem. Patient should not have psychological issues. Patient should not be extremely overweight, not extremely malnourished. So you need to find the exact patient, and you don't have a choice. I mean, you have
Absolutely.
to choose, of your 4 or 5 patients who are there with you. Patients are not flocking to you because you're not a transplant center.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I would say we were a bit lucky that we got, a kind of a middle-aged lady who was otherwise very healthy, very, robust in terms of her general health, and who had advanced liver disease. And then she was in circumstances that she could not really go to any other place for transplant. It's not that she would have taken this decision just because of lack of other options. I mean, she really believed in us. She was my patient for more than 6 months. And then we gradually put it into her mind that you need a transplant. And I never heard from her, conversation that she's reluctant to do transplant with us. I mean, she followed what we told her. She got her evaluation done, and then we successfully did the transplant. Also, not to remember, transplantation is a very, very interesting field. That's why I love it. That's why I'm passionate about it, because it's not just us. It's the people, and that's something maybe we should have a podcast separately on that, Raul. I really tell you, I mean, there's something which we'll do for the society.
Absolutely.
All over the world, especially for Dubai, where do the organs come from? People donate organs. These are unfortunate people
Right.
who have accidents, who have brain hemorrhages, strokes, who die. And there's a specific form of death called brain death, in which your brain stops functioning, your rest of the body is working, your heart is beating, but your brain is dead. You would never wake up. It's different from coma. In coma, you could still wake up. The brain is functioning to a bit. But in brain death, your brain is completely dead. There's a specific way to test it.
Right.
And this is standardized. So you have these brain death victims, and their family members, they are willing to donate their organs. And these organs, these livers, these kidneys, these pancreas, heart, lungs, intestines, are then transplanted into different recipients. So this system has been in place in UAE. And this credit goes to the health authorities of Dubai, who have taken this very interesting step to spread this message among the community, to gear up all the hospitals. These patients don't come to us. They're in different hospitals. They might be in Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah,
Right.
Abu Dhabi. Accidents happen everywhere.
Right.
Every single hospital, every single ICU is attuned to identify these patients. There are standardized testing procedures, standardized forms, standardized reporting structures. And then this body, which is based in Abu Dhabi, gets to know, and then they allocate these organs to different patients. Patients who are needing kidney transplants, liver transplants, other organ transplants. What organs we don't use go to other countries. For example, the organs go to Saudi Arabia, because they do a lot of heart and lung transplants, which do not happen too much in the UAE. So let's not forget that component. Without the donor organ, no transplantation can happen. And then there is a big timing issue.
Yes.
Because there's a liver transplant, there's going to be 2 kidney transplants, then the donor is unstable. Everything, it requires a lot of coordination between a lot of agencies. It's not our hospital. It's like 3-4 different hospitals, ambulance people, even managing sometimes things like traffic. Once we had to transport an organ to Abu Dhabi, when there were these recent heavy rains, and the Abu Dhabi team could not come to Dubai to collect or to procure one of the kidneys. And they took a chopper to fly into Dubai, which was sponsored by the police. It landed up on the police helipad from where they came to us. So, it is a lot of people involved. No single person can take the credit of doing transplantation. It's all a teamwork, and I should say that we are fortunate to have a good team at our hospital, and we are also fortunate to have great cooperation from the government authorities and health bodies, not just in Dubai but entire UAE. Yeah.
So, Dr. Raja, you're highly rated for compassionate care. You're somebody who's very, sensitive towards how the patients are going to take information, good, bad, whatever. Can you tell us of one incident, a touching incident where, you had to give some sort of a news to an individual, and how did you manage that situation or that incident which has, sort of left an impact on you and touched you?
Well, there are many such instances, but I'll start from the first point, maybe for the youngsters who want to take up the medical profession, you can't take it for its financial worth or the fame part of it. Really, this medical profession is a way of life.
Right.
It's not a profession by itself. Like you can't be let's not compare it with anything, but many other professions are also a way of life. You need to, but this is too engrossing. The
Right.
amount of effort you put in your studies, training, experience is like 20-25 years. Some people have hairs are already gray by the time they really enter into the field. So you have to really understand why you are in for it. And patients really look upon to you for the truth. So this is very important, where I am a bit critical, because our profession is getting less truthful, nowadays. And this is something what we need to be very, very careful
Right.
about it. Patients really want the truth. This is the matter of life and death of a patient. Okay, there are minor issues where you can go a bit here and there, but when it comes to organ failure, cancers, advanced degenerative disorders, neurological illnesses, patients want to understand what's going on, what's the right way, and what can improve their quality and overall survival.
Right.
So this is something we have to be very clear. Our interests and the patient's interest. The patient interest also has to be above our self-interest. So I think every good doctor, who feels he's himself successful, will at the end of the day sit back in a small room and say, have I always looked at patient interest? If you've looked at patient interest, you will never go wrong, and patients will throng into your clinics and will bring more patients. I think that's the best way to publicize your goodwill and your whatever you call it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Raja, I've seen I've read, from a lot of patients, their reviews. You build a relationship with your patients. Like you said, the gentlewoman who did the transplant, she was your patient for 6 months. A lot of doctors I've met are very transactional in nature, right? They're not very open, receptive, and somebody you can actually have an open conversation with. In a situation like this, where you said, like, liver disease is a progressive disorder, it happens over a period of time. Most of the times you're able to help them, but sometimes things can go wrong. Has there ever been a situation where you've treated a patient for, let's say, 6 months or a year, and due to some medical complication, that patient didn't make it? And how did that impact your mental health? How did that impact you as a doctor who's so compassionate, about his patients?
Yeah. I mean, there are hundreds of stories where we feel happy about the success part of it, but there have been few instances where we could not deliver what we would have expected. So I remember an instance. This was in India. I used to work in Bangalore, where we have a huge team. I'm still associated with them. Very helpful people, because it's, of course, we could do things at very low cost in Bangalore, India. So there was a patient. He was referred by a colleague of mine, a very close friend of mine, again from Chandigarh. He's a gastroenterologist in north of Maharashtra. And he specifically sent the patient to me all the way to Bangalore. He could have easily sent the patient to Mumbai, where again the patient could have done a transplant. But he said, no, go to Kaiser, he'll take care of you. Not just financially, because we would be a little more considerate towards the financial part, but otherwise also.
Right.
This lady came, her husband had liver disease. It was not alcohol related. It was cryptogenic, the cause not known. She needed a transplant. And that is why I was telling you about this donation part and why we should do a podcast about it.
Right.
In India, you don't have that many disease donors, not that many people donating organs after brain death.
Is it because of a religious mindset?
No. It's not at all religious. I think it's a system issue.
Okay.
It's a system issue. There are lots of things. We could probably discuss it when we discuss that part. It's just that the whole system is not into place. There are different states have different policies. The center has different policies. There are vested interests. There is a bit of religious issues. There are a bit of technical issues. So there are many issues. But if you look at India, sorry to say, but every country has deaths. In UAE, such a small country, about 9 million population, we have about 15, 16,000 deaths. So compared to, extrapolated to Indian population,
Absolutely.
130, 140 crores, how many people die? And how many organs could be taken from them? We would have never dearth of organs for our population. We could be exporting organs for others to benefit in our neighboring countries. But the system is not in place. So we don't have organs. So how do we transplant livers? Let's come back to our patient. So obviously we do something called a living donor transplant. Living donor means you take half the liver from a close family member or a relative or a close friend who's willing to donate and put this half the liver into the needy patient. I mean, again, this is also a successful way of transplantation, but this type of transplant where you transplant half a liver from a donor into a recipient, which is the patient, is obviously more complex, which you are transplanting half a liver.
Right.
And the complication rate of living donor transplants is always more than a disease donor transplant, which is the cadaveric transplant, which you take from a dying patient. So this patient had a living donor transplant. Her wife donated with great expectations. They sold their land in Maharashtra. They brought all the money. They had some minor complications which were being managed. But then, things crept in, infections came, other issues happened. This gentleman survived somehow for about 8 to 10 months, but he could not make it. And the family was financially ruined, And of course, psychologically ruined. They lost their, the most earning family member. They had 2 children. And, by that time I had migrated, or rather I had moved to Dubai, and this was happening in the background. And the lady used to message me, and we used to help her financially from whatever we could from our contacts in India. And we have a way of doing it, and we could discuss that also, how we help these patients. He died. And the lady was obviously in tears, Now her bigger issue was that, how to support education for her kids. I mean, thankfully, we connected her to some of our transplant patients who, look at from that angle. And you'll be surprised, both her children's education, it continues to be supported by one of our patients who himself had a transplant, and they never ask any questions. Every year, roughly around the month of April or so, including this year, I get a message from the lady that she has got the fees, and the fees is quite significant because they are now in college,
Wow.
So I'm very grateful to this other patient who has been helping this lady.
Wow. So, I mean, he got a transplant, the patient got a transplant, and he knows that he's been through the same journey, and he's trying to support somebody else who could not, get to the others. That is very touching.
So if you meet some of our transplant patients, I would say all of them, because some of them are in closer touch with us, others lose the touch, but whoever is closer, this liver transplantation, I would say any organ transplant is completely life-changing. You are on the verge of death, you're waiting for that organ. And when you do get a transplant and you have a new life. So I have seen many people, their perspective towards life, their whole philosophy of how they've lived life before transplant and after transplant changes completely.
Right.
So this is something really, I would say, life-changing for our patients. Yeah.
You spoke about the financial implications, right? It's not a cheap affair. It's an expensive affair. If, let's say, there's a patient who needs a liver transplant, how do you prepare the family emotionally, mentally, financially? I know there's no right way or wrong way to do it, but how do you actually prepare them and tell them that, okay, we're doing this, it needs a bucket load of money, but we're not sure if the person's going to make it or not? How does that work?
Well, I mean, the one thing we have to understand is that finances will be a challenge in any part of the world.
Absolutely.
When I used to work in India, I used to feel, it's very challenging to have finance here. I'm coming in UAE. Now we are transplanting at our hospital, King's in Dubai, and we are finding finance is the biggest challenge. Because the problem is that not everybody has same access to healthcare.
Absolutely.
I mean, you and me might have good insurances, but there are loads and loads of others who have got very limited insurance plans. They have insurance plans which don't get covered in my hospital. When it comes to transplant, it goes into several hundreds of thousands, Even charities have difficulty in supporting transplant.
Right.
So I think, again, for example, our hospitals have been supportive. Here also we get a lot of support from hospital. We get support from Dubai Health Authority, I mean, this is something where early programs when they are new, when you've done like 50, 60, 70 transplant, you may not be really making money out of it.
Absolutely.
But the amount of goodwill which comes with that, the amount of other stuff which comes with that, you're not just doing transplants, you're treating liver cancers, you're treating liver failure, you're seeing the garden variety fatty liver disease. The overall thing would make financial sense for a profit-making hospital. But if you say just the liver transplant, because again, I told you it's a huge teamwork.
Absolutely.
To organize that team to support those professionals and other manpower is not an easy task. When it comes to patients, yes, there is insurance, there is their own self-funds, there are charities, there is support here. There is very good support from the Dubai government. They're willing to support any resident of Dubai who needs a transplant, as long as he's a resident of Dubai. So there are ways of supporting them. I mean, and once again, if we talk on some other occasion about this, there are some huge philanthropists in India. There's a gentleman who has made a fund on his name. He has a website on his own name, and they support pediatric transplants in India. Because he himself has had a liver and kidney transplant. I told you,
Right.
It's a life-changing thing.
It is.
He has a foundation on his own name. I can't name him, but you go on the website, you can find out who he is. He's a big man, and he has a foundation to support pediatric transplants for any child who needs transplantation in India. This is amazing.
It
you know.
is.
So if you get an opportunity, the gentleman comes to Dubai, please invite him on your
Absolutely. I would love to.
podcast and have a discussion with him. This has been an eye-opener for people, how we can help. When it comes to medications, medications are expensive, but then again, the different channels, direct purchase from distributors, pharma companies, you can sort them out. The main thing is the transplants, this thing, So if you have some time, I'll just like to tell you a very interesting case.
Absolutely, please.
So I once, about a year and a half ago, a Filipino young lady, she came to me with a child. The child was absolutely yellow. Yellow means jaundice. And this child was about 9 months old. And his belly was full of fluid. So belly was protruding. He was crying. Eyes were yellow. Full body was yellow. And I said, yes, how can I help you? I don't treat children with liver disease. I do treat children, but not such small children. How can I help you? No, doctor, we are from Philippines. We are new here, 4 months in Dubai. My husband has a job. I don't have a job. And we want to go to New Delhi for a transplant, but the agency in Philippines has told us that we need a lot of money and we are trying to arrange it through family and friends. And I need to do some tests on my own body so that I can be a donor for my child. And then we'll go to Delhi after 6 months. I said, look, the way I can look at your child, this is not going to happen after 6 months. This looks pretty urgent.
The kid wouldn't make it.
Yes. I think the kid needs a transplant in the next couple of weeks. And they have no idea. They're new to Dubai, no insurance. They've never been to India. They don't know what's going to happen in Delhi, whom they're going to meet. Some agency in Philippines is trying to guide them. Of course, to guide them in a proper manner. But then they are here and the agency is there. I said, look, if you're willing to believe me, I can get it sorted out for you. We know this gentleman in India who supports transplants. We've never done it for a foreigner like that. He supports only Indian kids, but we can talk to other people. And you go to the system where I was working, and I called my colleague, the surgeon in Cochin, and I told him, his name is Matthew. Matthew, I have a child like that. He just told me, Kaiser, send him across. 3 words. I said, we'll sort out the money. And then we got the people involved here. They didn't have money to even buy the tickets. So again, as I told you, we contacted our transplant patients, help this child. And in the end, this transplant happened. So cut the whole story short. It's a story for a complete podcast. But this child went to Cochin, stayed there, got the transplant done. Someone even supported 1 year of medicines for this child because we did not know what would happen after she comes back. There's a lab here in Dubai who supports free testing for the child, and everything happened. I told her one thing when she first came to my clinic. You are new to Dubai. Have you been around Dubai? Yes, doctor, I've been. Do you see the glitterati around you? Do you see the money in Dubai? She says, yes. I said, there's lots of money in Dubai. You hardly need nothing. I said, you need 100,000 for this transplant if you go to India. You think we don't have 100,000 in this shining Dubai? We have it, you'll get it. Said, doctor, but who will give it to me? I said, don't worry, you'll get it. Now, when everything has happened, the child comes to me and I follow up. It's such a happy family. Imagine the amount of happiness you get. I hardly got anything out of it, but I remember that story the rest of my life, And this child's going to grow up. We already have discussions that this child should become a transplant surgeon when he grows up. He's still 2 years old. So these are like very, very interesting things, which happen. And so these are miracles, I would say, but it can't happen with the support of a lot of unknown people. A lot of unknown people have helped her. Absolutely. You won't believe someone has supported her by giving his 2-bedroom house in Cochin, stay, it's empty. Okay. And there's another gentleman who got a taxi for her on a mobile phone. I have a taxi company. This taxi will be with you for 2 months. Whenever you call, they will come. They're English speaking, and they're going to a Malayalam country. Of course, people speak English there. It was all managed, and so this is a very, what to say, a story of a lifetime.
Wow.
Yeah.
You said it was a miracle. Let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that. You're a scientific guy, highly intellectual. Do you believe in God?
Well, as long as as long as it helps us, we do believe in God. I mean, I would not believe in God doing miracles. I would say God, if you were to believe in that word, would give you strength, to do the right things, and right things can create miracles. Like this lady, there was another Filipino lady who went during COVID times to India. She went to Chennai for a transplant. Imagine there were no flights to India, and transplantation was not happening in Dubai. Her child needed a transplant. We wrote a letter to Indian embassy that please give a visa and let her husband and child go to Chennai in one of your that flights were going on, special flights were going
Repatriating flights,
on.
yes.
Only Indians could go on the
Yes,
flight. They
yes.
allowed her. And it was COVID in Chennai. She says, doctor, I didn't go anywhere. I just stayed in an apartment, got the transplant and came back. So 3 months she stayed in one house, got the transplant and came back. She has written a complete, I think she's not published it, but she's almost written a complete, book on the journey. And she got a huge Facebook page where she has mentioned the support she has got from every single family member, friend, medical professional who has helped her. So again, so I think there I would say God has helped them, give them strength. And there are many other stories. There was a daughter who helped her almost dying father, and this daughter is now married in the US because she donated her half of the organ to the father, and then she could not get married because she had a scar on her belly.
Oh my goodness.
And the father used to work here. He was a manager at a 5-star hotel, but now they migrated back to India. This father used to say, doctor, she donated to me, I'm doing well, but she can't get married. I used to tell her, have faith. You'll get a very good, groom for your daughter. Someone who really believes, in that power of sacrifice which she has done for you. And she really got a very good husband. I mean, he's in the IT software sector in California. They're very well settled there. They once in a while talk to me on social media. But I tell, wait. She will get a very good guy. Don't go for the average guy who will look at that scar. You have to look at the heart,
Absolutely.
rather than the scar.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So your better half is a doctor as well. So you have, she has had her own journey, and I'm hoping that we can have her on the podcast to talk about it. She also runs, a doctor's organization here, Doctors in Saris. But how is it being married to a doctor? Is it the same? Is it easier? Is it difficult?
Yeah, I would say for myself, there are challenges. It's difficult because we both are in very busy professions. My job, gastroenterology, especially liver diseases, lots of patients we have in ICU, then this transplantation. It takes away a lot of time. It's not just that 9 to 6 type of work. Sundays, Saturdays, we're busy. She's a surgeon, so she has surgeries at odd hours and with these corporate hospitals where the operation theaters are booked all the time. You have to actually operate at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So it's busy. She works in different places. So on weekends, I have to drive her because she expects me to drive her to, let's say, Sharjah for a surgery. So it's challenging, and with that, you have to sort out your family life, your household work, your social life. So that's the challenging part. The other thing is that she's of a similar specialty. She's gastrointestinal surgery. So a lot of our discussions and a lot of our, actually, I would say, fights at home are for patients. Because
Disagreements?
Disagreements. That's a
Right.
better word. So I would have referred a patient for her expecting something, but she had a different opinion.
Right.
So we kind of get at loggerheads that this is not to be done, but she said, no, that's the right way. So now, where
And
do you
who
do?
wins, doctor?
Well, there I would say science has to win. There I would not
Science has
say
to
wife
win.
has to win. Yeah.
Interesting. How do you cope up with a patient's death mentally for yourself? Do you take some time off, or do you just brush it? I know it's very difficult.
Yeah.
How do you cope up with a patient's death?
Yeah. So there, again, I'm again saying for myself, and don't take me wrong. Me as a doctor, maybe other doctors, we somehow get accustomed to this death. Death is one of the outcomes. I would not say we are not emotional. Yes, we feel bad when someone dies, but you have to understand, we know that a particular gentleman is going to die. We know. It's Okay, I would say when something unexpected happens. Well, there, of course, if it's
Right.
your patient, there's something unexpected happens. I would tell you a story just to explain it. So there was a gentleman from Pakistan, and in those days, Pakistan people would travel to India for transplant. Now transplantation has developed very well in Pakistan, and then we had no restriction on visas. I'm talking a long time back, 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
This gentleman, I saw him in UAE. I told him, see, you need a transplant, go to India. He got a visa, he went to India. He was a very fit guy. He just needed a transplant, and his brother was donating. So everything was in place. I was in Bangalore. And we went out on one of our medical talks, medical talks
Right,
which we give to
right.
doctors in
Right.
small towns
Right,
and
right.
districts, which was about 6 hours ago. I get a call that this guy is having a profuse blood vomiting, what we call hemorrhage, which happens in liver disease. He had never had that before. I said, it's okay. Liver disease patients do have bleeding. I mean, he'll have an endoscopy and we'll manage it. I said, okay, there are doctors there. They'll manage him. I am also on my way back, and we tried to wind up and quickly rush back. We reached, we wound up like 11 o'clock. We reached by 4 o'clock in the morning. But then this guy really, unfortunately, bled and bled despite whatever the others doctors did, whatever I did after going back. And by 6 o'clock, he was dead. So this was unexpected. This was unexpected. They had come
So he
to
bled to
India.
death.
Yes, come to India, to a foreign country, with the brother, other family members, for a transplant. And this gentleman died because of a GI bleed. It was completely unexpected. So there I would say that this was really heartbreaking, or this really, where I took like 2 days to compose myself that how did this happen, And there I would say we should sometimes anticipate things. Any liver disease patients can bleed. So when we talk about cirrhosis in the first, cirrhosis,
Right.
one of the complaints is GI bleeding, bad GI bleeding.
Gastrointestinal
internal
bleeding.
bleeding. So they bleed from big blood vessels in the food pipe or stomach. So we know that these people can bleed, and we don't wait for the bleeding. We do endoscopies much before that, assess the risk, and then put them on certain medications. We do something called banding of the varices. So these are technical things which we do. This gentleman had a similar procedure 6 months ago, and they were not much high risk features at that time, but 6 months had passed.
Right.
So probably if I or someone would have done an endoscopy on him a month ago, he might not have died. So that was something which sometimes, happens, So many patients are reluctant for endoscopies. I have patients right now in my clinic who need a transplant. They're waiting for a transplant, but they've not had an endoscopy. The son says, doctor, my mom doesn't like the endoscopy. Now, I'm trying to emphasize, see, I know your mom doesn't like it, but remember, she might bleed torrentially.
Right.
So patients sometimes don't understand. I'm not saying about that patient, but there are other patients where we say, okay, it's okay. Risk is less, patient may not bleed. But imagine if this patient bleeds, it might be the end of the story. But if you come back to your question, generally patients are sick, they're in ICU, they're on ventilators, life support. We can judge that it's very difficult for this patient to come out. Patients, their family has hope, which is okay. I would also have hope if my loved one is in that situation. But doctors know that it is going to happen. And sometimes we really do things where we know it's futile. So the emotional part of it, because it's going to happen, it doesn't happen suddenly. So our acceptance of death, when it happens in a patient, might be slightly different from when it would happen to my own loved one, or that sudden situation which I just mentioned. Yeah.
As a doctor, with the kind of experiences that you've had, has there ever been an instant where you've thought, or a situation that has happened, or a story that you'd like to share, which has reaffirmed your belief in the medical system, in the fact that the decision that you took to become a doctor? Is there any incident, any story you'd like to tell?
No, I would not repent the decision at all. It's a great field, for people who want to become doctors. I know there's a lot of struggle, there's a lot of competition, there are lots of doctors of all specialties. So don't think you're going to become a super doctor that you come out of your medical school, of your training. It's a
Right.
very, very long path. But those who are doctors, my colleagues, myself, it's a very exciting profession. These stories, you become part of people's lives,
Right.
like really. And the way people respect you, regard you, I to give you one more instance, I need a small amount of money. Maybe you could also contribute, for a, for a patient
Absolutely,
who needs a small surgery in Bangalore. This guy knows me since 2012.
Right.
He walked into my clinic without slippers, and he comes, he's a village boy. He was like, what, 22, 23? Now he's like 35. So we did a surgery for him in 75,000 rupees, which was our cost price. Now he needs another surgery. It needs about a few lakhs, 3-4 lakhs, So I said, that's not a big problem. But this guy doesn't have money. He still works in his fields. I mean, he's able to manage himself. He's married. He's able to but he doesn't have the 3-4 lakh. That's the problem about India, where, healthcare, suddenly when it comes, people don't have that small amount of money. So some of our government schemes actually try to balance off that small amount of money which people need. For you and me, we'll be able to sort out. But for these people, that small amount matters. So this guy needs a small, not a small, but a decent operation. We need a small amount of money. So I send a message to some of my patients, and I sent the message to 4 people. I said, 4 is enough. 5th is me. 6th is you. So 4 people is enough. 3 of them within the next half an hour send me a message, doctor, please send me the bank account number. Now, who would do that? You tell me. You ask money for someone else, who would give you money? I'm not sure what amount of money they would transfer, but I'm very sure that with the 3 or 4 of us, we'll be able to manage the 3 lakhs. It's not a big deal. So this is something which really tells you that, there is still a lot of humanity behind people, we should not lose hope in the world. And so I feel excited about this thing, the type of relationship we will build with people. It is beyond our science. It's beyond our profession, especially for me, my patients are not just patients, I am close to my patients,
Right.
Something which my wife may not like or a lot, but she also understands that we have to go beyond this so-called professional part, as you said, transactional part. It simply will not work, really.
One life lesson that you always, or a mantra that you always go by in your life, personally, professionally, that you'd like to share with us?
This is a difficult question because I really I'm really not that kind of a guy who has got a life mantra. I just live life by the day. I am passionate about my science, which is hepatology or liver diseases, and I'm just happy that if you ask me, I was doing very well in India. I was focused on what I was doing. I had to move here because of some personal situations. I did not see a very great future about hardcore liver diseases here. We're not talking about the basic fatty liver disease. We're talking of the high-end liver disease, liver cancer, as you said, liver cirrhosis, liver transplantation.
Right.
I could not imagine that I would be part of a program, the lead of a program, the director of a program which is doing liver transplants. So I feel excited. Like whoever is, I've not done much about it. I would be very frank in saying it is just that things have happened. And I happen to be part of that whatever happened. So I'm just excited about that. I really don't have a mantra for life. I would just tell people, if you really ask me, I tell when they're small, tussles within our professionals. I'm 50 years old, little above 50. I said, like, boss, and we see people dying. So we are exposed to death. We hear people dying. We see people dying. So everybody's dying. So if somebody's not dying today, he'll die tomorrow. He'll die at 60, 70, 80. All of us have to die. So
Right.
why this Kolaveri?
Why this Kolaveri?
Simple. So if you really ask me what I like and what I sometimes send to people is the pale blue dot. You know about the pale blue dot?
Yes.
It's by
Yes.
Carl Sagan.
Yes.
It's something which we should listen. We should hear. It's on YouTube. We could read. The pale blue dot. We are nobody. We are just fighting. I don't know for what. For a pale blue dot, which is a very indistinct dot. So I tell people, rise up. The more you rise, you will really feel how small you are. That's what Carl Sagan said.
Absolutely.
If you rise up in the sky, look at your house, you can't see your sky. You can't see your 500 acres of land, which you're so proud of.
Absolutely.
So I'd say that's a simple thing. Yeah.
Last question, doctor. As a medical professional, you said honesty is really important. In order to ensure that there is equity in healthcare, people are getting, the support that they need. There's a lot that is being done. But that's just you, right? You as an individual, as a doctor, are going out of your way to help these people. what is your one message to aspiring doctors, to people who want to get into this field? Because a lot of people are getting into this field because obviously there's a commercial component involved around it. Yes, it's a respectable job. In India, being a doctor is like a really important thing. But you've told us today about so many stories where none of this was there. It was just that feeling of humanity, that good feeling of saving people's lives. So, as somebody who's so compassionate, driven, brave, resilient, and successful in his field, what is your one message to aspiring doctors or people who are aspiring to become a medical professional?
I think this is a very good question you've asked, Raul, because I do get these, I mean, there are my colleagues whose children are all going into colleges, they're 18, 19, 20. And in fact, some of the students come to me in my clinic, do a week of observership just to
Right.
get a hang of I don't know how much they can learn in a week, but still, I would say the young people who are in grade 10, 11, because they
Right.
need to choose a biological field or a mathematics and physical side or physics or whatever you call. I mean, I think these young kids should first get exposed, by talking to people. And we have to do it early. I mean, I'm sure you also have small kids, So, for example, early on, it's not towards 9, 10th, 11, 12th. Even early on, people should get exposed to what's happening with the people you see in the community. Like,
Right.
what is a tax consultant doing?
Right.
What is a lawyer doing?
Right.
What is an architect doing? What is an administrator doing? What is this doctor doing? Children should be inquisitive. For a child who is inquisitive to the medical science for whatever reason, I think before jumping into the profession, they should get exposure to really understand the ethics of this profession, the connect which we need to develop with the patient, and of course the struggle of the profession.
Right.
It's not just the compassionate care or whatever else or the laurels or whatever you're going to get. No, it's the struggle also you have to understand. So only then you should venture into the field, because now I'm seeing there are many doctors who have done medical school and they are then a bit kind of confused that was this the right thing to do? Then they go into administration or they go into some other allied field. So which is fine, because if it doesn't suit them, why unnecessarily waste your profession on this one? But if one were to do it early, so I think I can't say for other professions, but as a general rule, a child should get exposed to a few things what he likes. These career counselors who talk to them, should be more practical. And we are happy to help these children. And lots of, my patients come to me, doctor, my daughter is in grade 9 and she wants to become a doctor. What would you advise her? I give them very frank advice.
Right.
I don't paint a rosy picture. That's wrong. Because the pathway is difficult. It's tough.
Absolutely.
So if you have the inclination to become a doctor, you have to go through that rigorous training, competition. And now the unfortunate thing is that the world has now become a playing field. It's not that you're in India or you're in Middle East or you're in North America or Europe. You have to compete with everyone. Tomorrow you go for training to a Western institute in Europe or North America. You have to compete with them. So you have to understand what you need to do. So that's what I would say.
Wow, we've had such an amazing conversation, Dr. Raja. I think there's so much that we can take. I hope that more doctors would be as compassionate as you are. And I already have a lot of follow-up ideas for our next podcast, and I'm definitely we're gonna do another follow-up episode to talk more about the donor's mindset and what the governments can do in order to support it, what's actually happening, the good stuff. There's already a lot of bad stuff happening. Let's talk about the good stuff. But I've had a fantastic conversation with you, Dr. Raja. Thank you so much for your time today. And I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon.
Thank you very much, Raul. It was a great pleasure sharing some insights about our interesting stories and experiences. Really, I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So
Thank
much.
you, doctor. Thank you.
Well, there are many such instances, but I'll start from the first point, maybe for the youngsters who want to take up the medical profession, you can't take it for its financial worth or the fame part of it. Really, it's this medical profession is a way of life.
Right.
It's not a profession by itself. Like you can't be. Let's not compare it with anything, but many other professions are also a way of life. You need to, but this is too engrossing. The
Right.
amount of effort you put in your studies, training, experience is like 20-25 years. Some people are hairs are already gray by the time they really enter into the field. So you have to really understand why you are in for it.